I'm getting a little closer to the top of the hour, but I see new people signing on, and some of you I know, so I can call you out and welcome you. But if you will, please, if as you log in, navigate your way, find your way to the chat box. It's located on the bottom part of the screen that's being shared underneath the South Beta Sorrento logo, and enter your name and the organization you represent. Since the last time I kind of updated folks, we have some folks from Chula Vista. We have some of the consultant team on the call. Imperial Beach, glad to have you with us. We also have Rebecca, thanks for joining us, from the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce. Laura from the Environmental Health Coalition, really good to see everyone here. Stephen from the Port of San Diego, always good to have you on a call. Thanks so much for joining us. And those of you that are still logging in and joining us, we're so happy to have you here. We are asking everyone to go to the chat box and enter your name and your organization into the chat box, and we'll get started in just a few moments here. Great, some of our wonderful community volunteers, our community planning groups, community planning committees are here. We have an Eastern area community planning folk. Linda, good to see you, or to know that you're here. I guess I'm not seeing you. We have the Urban Collective Project from Southeast San Diego here. Kathy Kien, I almost called you out because we're friends with each other, but Kathy from the county and from the air pollution division. And I know there's more to your name than just air pollution, Kathy, from APCD, or is your acronym. And my name's Elizabeth, and I'm part of the consultant team. I'm with Sutra Research, and always an honor to work with SANDAG. We're going to get started in just a few moments. And as folks are still signing in here, we're asking you to go to the chat box and enter your name and your organization. Lots of folks are doing this. We have, looks like about 38 attendees on the call. Thanks so much for making time today. We're super excited to share with you this kickoff meeting for the South Beta Sorrento CMCP. Great, and I see a few more folks signing in. Thanks so much for joining us. Maria from City Heights CDC, wonderful to have you with us. Paloma from MCCC and a resident of Barrio Logan. Always good to have some Barrio Logan representation here. Stephanie from the City Heights Community Development Corporation. Always doing great work out there with transportation as your transportation and planning coordinator. Some folks from Caltrans, Karen, I see you're here. Some residents of City Heights, Vincent, thanks for signing on here. Really good to see everyone. And we'll get started in just a moment. We're going to wait for just one more minute. Some more folks signing in. We're up to 43 here. If you're just joining us, thanks so much for being here. I'm Elizabeth, and I'm one of the consultants who'll serve as the moderator today. I see Jim from the Center for Urban Economics and Design. Good to see you. Angela with City Heights. Really good to see you. Lots of City Heights folks here. Toshi, I see from SD 350. San Diego 350, a climate action transportation chairs here from that group too. B, welcome, thanks so much. I do see Mario, thanks for being here, and I do see your question. Everyone is muted at this point, so no muting and unmuting needed. Circulate San Diego, good to see everyone from Circulate San Diego. MTS, Rodrigo's here. Have a lot of folks calling in. We have someone from Cross Border Express. Good to see you, Nancy. Kiara from a researcher and policy advocate from the Center on Policy Initiatives. Good to see you. And Jennifer, how are we doing? I think, and Nicola, good to see you. It's Elizabeth saying hello. Nicola from Caltrans is here.
Yeah, Elizabeth, I think we could get started here fairly quickly.
Yeah, I'll let you go ahead and say hello, and I'll just leave off with a reminder that if you're just now joining us, welcome, and please add your name and your organization to the chat box. Jennifer, let's go ahead and let you get started.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Elizabeth, for the introductions and getting everybody into the meeting. My name is Jennifer Williamson, and I am a principal planner here at SANDAG, and I'm the project manager for the South Bay to Sorrento Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Study. I really want to thank everybody for being here today. I know it's a lot to ask for 2 hours out of anybody's schedule these days. And so we really do appreciate your involvement in our study. In just a minute, I'm going to turn it back over to Elizabeth, and we're going to do some icebreakers and introductions, and then I'm going to jump right into a pretty heavy schedule. So with that, Elizabeth, do you want to take it back and get us started?
Yeah, thanks so much, Jennifer. So as I was saying, as we were welcoming everyone, I'm Elizabeth Hannon. My consulting firm is called Sutra Research, and I'm part of the HNTB MBI team here, serving as your moderator today. And we'll be moderating much of our engagement as we navigate through the next several months, seeking your input on South Bay to Sorrento. Jennifer's with us from SANDAG. We also have Caltrans is an important partner in this project. And I was reading through, and if you were joining late, I was kind of reading through people's names and welcoming you as you were joining in. But we have folks from City Heights CDC, we have folks from San Ysidro, several members of the public and community-based organizations from Chula Vista, from National City, Imperial Beach is here, Otay Mesa Chambers here, Casa Familiar is here, a great advocate down in the San Ysidro area. So we're super excited. And just a little bit, Jennifer's going to share with you a little bit more about the CMCP program, and more specifically about the CMC project that we're here to talk about, South Bay to Sorrento. Now, since we are virtual, I would love to be in a room with you all and feel the warm bodies, especially because I'm out in East County, San Diego, where we had 75-mile-per-hour winds and we've been freezing. So it would be nice to be in a warm room together. But since we're not, we're going to need to ask you to engage with us through a polling tool, which is showing on your screen. We're going to do a couple polls today using Menti. And there's two ways that you can access Menti. And so if you have your cell phone, that's my favorite way to use it. I have my cell phone here, and I'm going to navigate to my camera and take a screenshot of the, what are these called? Not URL codes, they're called QR codes. I'm going to take a screenshot of that QR code on my phone, and then many of you may be doing this at restaurants or using these a lot. But now on my phone, I can see the Menti poll live, and this will follow us along as we go through the entire presentation. If you don't have your cell phone, you can also go to your browser on the internet and go to menti.com and then type in the code 7124574. It's 7124574, and my colleague and friend Corey has that on the screen for you here. But I believe I'm seeing people signing in that you're able to access either the QR code or go to menti.com and put the code in. And in just a moment, we're going to do some interactive activities to test this out. There are some meeting guidelines on the screen for you. We do want you to be aware that it's being recorded. I've asked you to put your name and organization into the chat box, and folks are doing that. I also want to point out at the bottom, in addition to having the chat box, which at any time as Jennifer and other team members are sharing information, as we're sharing information, go ahead and type your question into the chat box, or there's an opportunity to raise your hands. Now, Laura, I'm not seeing many people on the phone, but if you happen to be on the phone, you can also raise your hand so that we can identify you. And that's by using, is it pound or *9? It's #9, right? Laura, you'll double check that for me and let me know, but I'm pretty sure it's #9 if you're on the phone. So we can chat at any time you have a question. I see Some folks are asking questions, they're being answered now. And put your name into the chat box or raise your hand when you have a question. We'll take some breaks for questions as time unfolds here. There will be times where we'll unmute folks. We'll ask that you do mute yourself again once your hand's been raised, or if we're using the chat box to engage with you. So I see some folks, it looks like folks are signed into Menti. Randy, I see you asking a question. Can you go to menti.com to do the polling with us? And I also see some folks answering the questions there. So either on your smartphone or on the browser on the website. Randy, if you're multitasking and you're on your phone and maybe driving or doing something else, we'll circle back for some input on these items. But Corey, let's go to the next screen, please, or the next slide. And if you're following along on your phone or you're on your browser, we just want to test things out here. So I'm going to my phone, and where the first question that we have was, what was the best part of your recent Thanksgiving holiday? And I'm going to choose the football because I didn't know football was on this Thursday. Corey informed me it was. Apparently there were 4 teams that we weren't very excited about. But I can see many of you voting. This is awesome. And so we can see the results happening live here. Even though we're under some pretty heavy pandemic restrictions, still the family is reigning top as the best part. I think I'm the only person that chose football, but it looks like food and family are kind of neck and neck here. Oh, food just made a big advancement. What this is telling me is that at least 45 of us have been able to navigate to Menti and do some polling. If you haven't been able to access Menti for some reason, please use the chat box to let us know your answers. We'll record them. Your input's really important to us. Not so much on how the Thanksgiving holiday was, but I'm really glad to see that we were all able to use that. Jennifer, do you want to come on here and let's go to the next slide, Corey, and let everyone know a little bit more what we'll be covering today?
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. So again, as Elizabeth said, she announced a few of you who are on the call today, but I wanted to let you know before I jump into our agenda that we are joined by several members of our project team. So there are representatives from Caltrans, SANDAG, our communications staff, and then several subject matter experts. And those are technical experts that can address very specific questions or that allow us to tap into their technical knowledge. So we do have those folks available to us today as well. I'm super excited that you guys have joined us. This is our very first stakeholder meeting. So if it goes great, that's awesome. And if it goes badly, give us a little break there because, it's the first and we're just jumping out here. We do have a full meeting today, but I wanted to let you know that you may get some time back in your schedule. I'm not sure we'll need our full 2 hours. So just letting you know that we might give you a little time at the end. We will have questions and answers at the end for you to engage with us specifically after we go through the presentation. But as you can see from the agenda, today we're going to be covering, what is a CMCP and why is it important to you? And why is it important that we have our stakeholders engaged? We're going to show you our study area and talk a little bit about the sub areas that we've broken our study into for data analysis. We're going to show you a lot of information about how the corridor is represented via population, employment, demographics, just kind of give you a feel for what we're looking at within the corridor. We're going to look at some performance measures and talk about how we're going to narrow down the options that we'll be developing. And then finally, the schedule for stakeholder involvement and next steps. So we do have a big schedule, but I'm pleased to let you know that I'm not just going to talk to you for the next 40 slides or so. You're going to be asked to do a lot of interaction with us. And as Elizabeth just took you through that Menti poll, we're going to do several of these polls, and they're not going to just be about food and football. So we are going to be asking for your input throughout the process. And I'd also like to let you know that as the project manager, I'm always available to anybody to answer questions outside of this meeting. So if you'd like to reach out to me, that's certainly an option once we're done here today. So next slide, please. So this slide is our comprehensive multimodal study areas. I'd like to give you just a little bit of background on this. On September 27th of last year, the SANDAG Board of Directors allocated $40 million over 5 years to complete several comprehensive multimodal corridor plans for our region. And the CMCPs, the real goal of the CMCPs are to help our decision makers by providing them with a blueprint of different transportation solutions that can be implemented throughout the region. Our CMCPs develop are really kind of integrated corridor planning projects. They are developed to align with state goals and to compete for funding. And that's a really key important item here. We have detailed these corridors as priorities for planning for our regional vision activities that I'm sure you've all heard about through presentations that we've been given. We also, the CMCPs are also a requirement for state funding eligibility. So there are several major funding pots that are going to be coming out in 2022, and they require that a CMCP be completed before we can compete for project funding. So it's a really important component of, being able to get some of our goals done. And really what a CMCP does and why it's important to you guys is that the CMCP is a bridge to vision. So if you think about projects that are in the regional vision today, how could we, what kind of projects could we develop in the near term or the short term that allow us to create building blocks to implementing that vision? And those are the type of projects that we're hoping to see really come out of our CMCP. So what this slide shows you are 5 CMCP studies that are currently underway in the region. This includes our North County regional study that's shown in yellow, and that kind of follows the SR 78 corridor up there in North County. The next study is the San Vicente corridor that's shown in orange, and that's kind of a 67 if you want to get a frame of reference for where that is out there. Then we have the Coast Canyons and Trails corridor that's shown in green. That travels parallel or along the SR 52 corridor. And then finally, and then the Central Mobility Hub and Connections corridor shown in blue there. Our study area is shown in purple. And as you can see, it is a giant study area. So it incorporates about 28 miles of the region. And in a minute, I'm going to show you how we're going to break down that study area in order to understand it better. So you can also see in this slide that we have several areas that overlap. So a couple of these CMCPs overlap with our area. And in those instances, we are coordinating very closely with the other studies to ensure that projects that are developed in our study or in their study are represented both in each of our studies. So for instance, the SR 52, the Coast Canyons and Trails project, comes directly across our South Bay to Sorrento project. We'll be working very closely with that team to ensure that projects that travel through our study area are represented and planned for in our study area. So I just wanted to let you know that. And then in addition to this CMCPs, we're coordinating closely with a lot of other parallel studies that are happening in the region that have influence or direct, direct outputs that will contribute to our corridor. And so we're tracking those very closely as well. We currently have a project team that's defined for our study area that's made up of SANDAG, Caltrans, City of San Diego, Chula Vista, Imperial Beach, Coronado, and then the military. Additionally, as I said before, our project team is supported by over 50 subject matter experts in the region, and they represent what we call our technical advisory committee. And we're meeting monthly with our technical advisory committee to help us develop packages for projects and programs that might be implemented and as part of our study. So next slide, please. So here's our study area that's broken down into the sub areas. Sub areas are used so we can perform more detailed analysis on the travel patterns that are happening within those areas. It also helps us to better understand the demographic and socioeconomic data within each of those sub areas. And then finally, the very specific needs. So for instance, you'll see in yellow there, we have our Coronado, Imperial Beach sub area. And that has very distinct travel patterns and mobility requirements that may be entirely unique to it. Whereas Kearney Mesa or Sorrento Valley that are shown up at the top of that graphic in blue and pink have their own kind of mobility challenges. So by breaking it up into sub areas, we're really able to drill down into what the unique patterns are within those areas. And to let you know how we developed those study areas, we used a GIS kind of basis so that we could identify major transportation corridors that made logical breaks. We also looked at travel patterns. And again, that goes back to Coronado Imperial Beach has very distinct military-driven travel patterns that are somewhat unique to that area. So there were different features that went into developing our sub areas. So next slide, please. Now let's look at what the data is telling us about the sub area. Our study includes about a quarter of the population of the region, 20% of the housing, and close to 30% of the jobs. In a minute, I'm going to show you the jobs and the population. So basically where people are working and where people are living, so you can help see why it's so important to understand this. This is what's driving a lot of people to travel within the region and within our study area. And then we also drilled down into our communities of concern. Our study area has a larger than representative proportion of low income and Black, Indigenous people of color. Concentrations of these communities are mostly located in the center of our study area and in the South Bay communities. And we'll show you that in just a minute as well. It's illustrated graphically on a map for you. Again, because we have a large percentage of at-risk communities, it's going to be really important that our study keeps social equity front and center in determining our outcomes. And that's one of the reasons that we track this data so closely. And we really seek to understand where these groups live and what kind of transportation challenges they have. Also, when we make this presentation available to you on the website after this meeting, you're going to see some slides that further break down this data into those sub areas. We didn't want to use all your time today, so you'll be able to have that information for you if you want to go in and drill down on these breakouts that are distinct to the sub areas. So next slide, please. Here is the South Bay to Sorrento study area, and this shows where people live and where people work. And as I said before, we have about 25% of the population of the region and just over 30% of the jobs. So when we look at the maps, it helps to illustrate the amount of travel that has to happen to allow people to, within the study area, to get to the major employment centers. So let me just orient you to those employment centers, which are shown on the right-hand side of that map. Our study area includes 2 of the 3 major employment centers within the region. So at the top of the map there in that big kind of dark blob is Sorrento Valley UTC. That is the #1 employment destination in our region today. And that's where a huge number of trips are traveling to daily. The second major employment center within our study area is Kearney Mesa, which is located just under Sorrento, that next kind of major blob there. And then important to note is that our study area is also adjacent to the 3rd major employment center in the region, which is downtown San Diego. So a lot of people are using the major transportation facilities in our study area to get to these major employment centers. But then if you look over to the map that's on your left there, you'll see where people live. And the darker the purple colors, the darker the concentration of population. So what you'll see here is that the majority of our population is in that center, just kind of south of I-8, and then in the South Bay communities. Miramar up north, and Kearney Mesa, because it's a real job center, you really start to see the population densities decrease as you continue north in our corridor. So again, what this helps you to illustrate is that people, the highest concentration of population, if they are going to any of these job centers, they have to travel, and they have to usually use, right now they're mostly using the 805 corridor to get to these job destinations. So that's important to understand as we're looking at this. Next slide, please. So here we have the communities of concern. And as I said, this is really instrumental in understanding as we move through our study. The slide shows the distribution of our three different communities of concern that we track. And similar to the population map that I just showed you, almost all three of these communities have concentrations in the middle of the study area, as well as in the South County. In addition to connecting these communities to job centers, which will be important, we also need to pay really close attention to what other kinds of travel trips they're going to be making, how we can connect these areas to activity centers such as hospitals, higher education, shopping destinations, and also recreational areas. These communities often have lack of real options to get to some of these places. So that is why we are paying close attention to that. And just so I take a breath and you get a little break here, I'm going to turn it back over to Elizabeth, and we're going to do another poll right now. So
That's right,
Elizabeth?
Jennifer. Yeah, thanks so much. Well-deserved breath there. Folks, I'm just going to let everyone take a look at the screen. Corey's advanced for us here, the slide. If you can, you should have on your phone, the poll should just appear automatically. There shouldn't be anything. If you participated in the poll just a moment ago, you can participate in the poll now. Also in the chat box, our moderator has added the menti.com and the code, which is 712574, so that you can participate in this poll. And, you know, Jennifer, on the call with today, we have many transportation advocates, folks that work for the county, that work for the city, representatives of community planning groups, some members of the general public. But right now, what we're looking to do is kind of just check the pulse of everyone on this call in terms of, you know, what are we thinking the problems are? You know, Jennifer shared with us a little bit more about the study area and drilled down into some of our communities of concern. But here we've asked you to, and I can see many of us were able to follow the directions as I was chatting there, but to rank your top 3 transportation concerns. Now, if there's one that doesn't appear on the screen, drop it in the chat box. We'd love to see that. I also saw some questions coming through the chat box as Jennifer was talking, and we'll answer those in just a little bit. But
if I can just chime in here that, you know, I want the stakeholders to know that this information that you're giving us today will be then, you know, tabulated and help to guide the study and the solutions moving forward. So it's really instrumental, and it's just so important that we gauge your opinions, because as much information as we have, we really look to you guys as owners and operators within these areas to help us round out our knowledge.
Yeah, that's right, Jennifer. And, you know, I'm watching the poll happen as you're sharing that with the participants, and, you know, kind of running pretty high, pretty hard and heavy up top here is connecting affordable housing and jobs, this efficient land use that you were kind of just talking about. You know, what's ranking second right now is the transit availability and transportation choices. Very important to the majority of the folks on the call. Looks like it's kind of running neck and neck here in third place with traffic congestion and travel reliability. That doesn't mean that just because social equity and fairness ranks fourth, that the team's not going to take a look at that. wholeheartedly, but we're also going to take a look at what's coming in here fifth, at cleaner transportation, reducing climate change impacts and air pollution, obviously very important, kind of related to the traffic congestion comment that we have here as well. So a few things moving around. Corey, I think we can close this out with just kind of noting that a lot of information here, a lot of folks interested in connecting affordable housing and jobs, making efficient land use, the availability of transit and other transportation options, and traffic congestion and travel reliability kind of ranking as top concerns. So as Jennifer, you were saying, we're going to take this information and share it with our technical team and use it as part of our analysis.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Let's go on to the next slide there, Corey.
Okay. Okay, so, whenever we start a study, what we look to do is to understand and get the lay of the land of what the existing conditions are within the study area. And because this study is multimodal, we'll be taking a look at various aspects of the transportation system. On this side, you'll see the major regional transit, existing transit today. Within our study area, we have multiple trolley lines. The blue line, which travels from San Ysidro up to downtown San Diego, will ultimately travel up to the UTC area, operates almost exclusively currently within our study area. And then we also have portions of the orange line and the green line that bisect our study area as well. You'll also see that we do have some of the rapid lines that are shown here on this map, and they traverse through our area. But I think what you'll also see here is that we have a real lack of connections. If you'll think back to that map I just showed you of where people live and where people work, we are not connecting our job centers very well via transit. So we don't have, direct connections to Kearney Mesa or to Sorrento Valley. For a lot of people, it's very circuitous, to get to those areas. So that's something that our group has identified almost immediately when we started to look at the existing conditions for transit that have been identified on this graphic. So next slide, please. And here, this slide illustrates the active transportation routes within the study area. So I understand completely that this map just looks like a bunch of squiggly lines and can be really hard to interpret. So what I'd like to point out to you is that, our focus is really on those class 1 and 2 type facilities. And those are the bike lanes that are either buffered or entirely separated from traffic, because those are the types of services that really can change mode share. Those are the types of alignments that people will get out of their car, and it'll promote them to use transit. So what we see here is that although it feels like there's a lot of network out there, what we're finding is that there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle out there, but they're not all together. And there's a lot of gaps in the active transportation network. And again, just like transit, what we're seeing here is that there's a lack of connectivity to our major employment centers. Again, if you think about Kearney Mesa and Sorrento Valley, if anybody has traveled along Sorrento Valley Road, you wouldn't want to do that on a bike. So these are the major gaps that we're beginning to identify when we start to look at what's out there today for the active transportation system. Next slide, please. As I indicated before, our study area includes several major freeways. This map helps us to illustrate the major points of congestion along the corridor. The study area is home, whether we like it or not, to 3 of the top 10 most congested areas of the region. We actually have 10 of the top 50 congested areas overall on the freeway network. And anyone that has had to travel along 805 during the peak periods is well aware of this, especially as you try to get into that UTC or Sorrento area, or anyone traveling from the South Bay into downtown San Diego on the I-5 South corridor. There's a real issue with congestion points. So what you'll see here on this map is that we point out to you that the major congestion, again, just as I said, is in the heart of the corridor along 805. And then as we get into Sorrento Valley, that's a major pinch point. And then on the I-5 going into downtown San Diego. But then, you know, the border, we can't help but identify that the border is a major point of congestion with the border wait times as well. And even though those aren't identified on this graphic, we do know that the border wait times can have significant impacts on the overall freeway network. So that is something that we're going to be paying a lot of attention to. Now we're going to turn it back to you. And Elizabeth, if you'll jump in here.
Thanks, Jennifer. Go ahead.
Do another poll.
Yeah, we're going to do another poll. It's polling time. You know, Corey, will you go back to the map slide just for a moment so I can set this up, folks, and then we'll go back to the poll. So Jennifer was talking through these top 10, and we have a few top 50 congestion pain points in terms of our highways. And for me, one that I would add when we go to the poll here in just a second, we're going to ask for other pain points that you might identify. When I come in from East County on the 94, you know, it really backs up when I hit 805, and it backs up again when I'm hitting 5. So when I'm answering the poll, I'm going to add a pain point about 94 and 805. I'm going to type that in. But, you know, Jennifer, you were talking about the active transportation network, and I want to make sure that we're looking at some pain points in our next Mentimeter polling question that are also looking beyond the freeway system. You know, I have a lot of work in Los Angeles, and I was frequently on the train before COVID. And, you know, the train system has its own bottlenecks, right? We back up when we get to that Sorrento Valley area, oftentimes waiting for other trains to pass and things of that nature. You know, trying to make an efficient route from Los Angeles to the border. You know, we need to look at those pinch points. So adding that, go ahead.
Yeah, even on local transit, if you think about if you want to get on the trolley going into downtown, where it might take you a half an hour in a car, it can take you much longer via public transit. And I personally see that as my own personal pain point. So that's something that I would put on this study, as well as the long transit commute times.
Long transit commute times. Let's go to the Menti poll. Thanks for that, Corey. So here, where we're asking, where are the pain points? We'd like you to go ahead and just sort of free-form enter into your Menti poll. You know, where they exist. We're talking roadways, we're talking active transportation. So some of our friends from the Bicycle Coalition, or Randy, I know you're a biker, you know, some pain points for active transportation and biking. A goods movement, I know there's a customs broker, just your name's escaping me, but I know that the president of the Custom Broker Association's on the call. If you can put on your goods movement hat and talk about some of the pain points, you know, where the truckers are waiting in line and causing bottlenecks.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the things that we haven't talked a lot about is lack of pedestrian connections also. Mm-hmm. So if there's areas that have missing ramps or have limited sidewalks, or the sidewalks are too narrow, I mean, that's the kind of thing that we want to know and understand, mm-hmm. In addition to just knowing that the traffic on 805 is desperately bad.
Yeah, and so there's great. So if you're looking at the screen here, we have kind of rolling through everyone's input. Somebody's talking about the 805 between Conway and Friars. You know, yes, a pain point for sure. You know, the 5 near the naval bases. Thanks for adding that in. A limited bike and ped network around Mission Valley and Kearny Mesa, I think is what our abbreviations are saying there. Southeast San Diego completely lacks sidewalks. Thank you for adding that pedestrian. Just in general, the San Ysidro port of entry can certainly be a pain point. I'm seeing somebody who's with me on 94 and the 94 125 interchange, you know, definitely becomes a pain point. Limited and bike network, we did that one. Yes, and we do have issues in our Vision Zero. Somebody put their Vision Zero hat on, I think, here, and talking about issues with University Avenue, El Cajon, with pedestrian safety. And you were calling that traffic violence. I'm thinking you're talking about accidents between vehicles and people.
Mhm. Yeah.
Security at light rail stations, yes, does not feel safe, right? As a man or a woman, but for me as a woman, at some of our light rail stations, certainly we don't feel safe, and many of those in the South Bay area. Really great input here, team. Thanks so much.
Yeah, this is
Safety on
awesome.
public transit is certainly is a real concern. Again, more on transit, late night and early morning transit is nearly non-existent, or the commenter says non-existent. Transit connection, total trip time, more lighting, 5 and 805 with 3 exclamation marks. Yeah, on ramp to 94 East from Euclid. Thanks for adding that one. So this is so important to us, Jennifer, the work that the stakeholders are doing here, kind of filling in on areas that, Jennifer and the project team, we know a lot, but we really need this input from, the eyes on the ground, boots on the ground here. Potholes, overall street quality, north-south connections across Mission Valley. Again, more comments on sidewalks. I think you all can see some of these things. Some folks are also adding in our chat box, calls for 24-hour transit. 94 into Lemon Grove gets a little painful. Signal improvement.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good one. I'm glad somebody brought that up because, that's a low-hanging fruit. If some of these things that we are looking for are there immediate solutions that are there issues that we can identify for as low-hanging fruit, immediate kind of solutions that we can start to try to address through our study?
So if, Corey, let's just give a few more seconds. I think there's maybe people are still entering a few of them here, what I'm looking at. And Jennifer, I think we've covered many of these, but just reminding folks how important your input is here. And it doesn't stop here either. Not only will we have more presentations with this group of stakeholders, we will also be doing outreach to the general public, be
Mhm.
asking you for assistance on that. Jennifer's offered up direct communication with her. And so it doesn't stop here. If you ran out of time and didn't get everything in, please feel free to drop them in the chat box if you're still thinking about them. And you can also email or reach out to the consultant team, project team, I should say, and we'll share with you how to do that as we wrap up the presentation.
Great. I love that we're seeing so many responses. This is
Yeah,
exactly what we had hoped for. This is wonderful.
it is. And I think that with the next section here, let's go ahead and shift over to, you do want to talk about some of these challenges, and then let's shine a light on some opportunities
Mhm.
in your next couple of slides.
Yeah, so, we asked you what you think were the challenges, and then our project team also spent some time identifying the challenges as well, that we know from our experience and our work in these corridors. And the things that we identified as some high-level challenges were, for transit, the lack of high-quality north-south connections and a network that supports those. So I'm sure that you're aware that, the Purple Line's been talked about for a very, very long time to provide that option. And it's a real need. We know that that's a real need. And then, as I mentioned before, for active transportation, the gaps in connectivity and safety. That's one of the biggest impediments that we hear about active transportation is that people simply don't feel safe riding their bike adjacent to cars. And so that's something that we are going to be focused on through the development of some of those higher level active transportation corridors. And then, just as you all said, we know that there's congestion and we know that there's travel delays. And, it's not just for the cars and people that are traveling on the roadways. We are becoming a society that moves more goods than ever. And it's not just your huge trucks. we're becoming a society that relies on door-to-door delivery from Amazon and, all of the food delivery that occurs nowadays as well. So those are all impeded when we have congestion on our highways and our roadways. So that's a significant um, challenge that our group will be seeking to understand better. And then for the communities of concern, they're across the board, there's a lack of high quality and reliable mobility options. There's a lack of equity in transportation solutions across the region. And so we really need to focus on that. And we understand that. We also know that, as I said before, the travel times to education and employment, and even if you want to just have some recreation, the amount of time that it could take someone to get somewhere they want to go via transit is much, much longer than if you were to be driving a car. So that's a challenge that we saw. And then our environmental challenges, we can never lose sight of the fact that one of our overarching state mandates is to reduce GHG or I'm sorry, greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled in this region. And, that's kind of at the forefront of everything we do. So we'll be measuring that and looking at that as a key component of anything that we come out of this. And, today we see GHG on the rise, not on the fall. So we have a huge amount of work to do to bring those emissions down. And then we also know that climate change impacts are going to have a substantial impact to our transportation infrastructure. And we see this through fires that happen out in the East County and, that knock out our power, that knock out our transportation facilities or severely constrain our transportation facilities. We also know that with sea level rise in some of the South Bay counties, sea level rise could impact our freeway and our trolley infrastructure as well. So we really need to start developing sustainable infrastructure that's climate resistant. In addition to trying to reduce those emissions that help to, or that promote climate change, we need to really focus on paths that help us to reduce the impacts of that climate change. And then finally, as you all said, I mean, it always makes me happy when what the public is saying is what we know as well. So that we're in alignment is that, we really need a jobs housing balance that really provides high quality jobs closer to where people work. We really need to look at siting our land uses around our major transit infrastructures to support some, more multimodal options. So you'll see some of that through the mobility hub work that we'll be doing here as well. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Elizabeth, I think, or no, do I do
Yeah, let's go ahead and go through the opportunities a little bit here, Jennifer. And
opportunities next? I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm sorry.
no, that's
Yes,
okay. I was just
yes.
going to say
So,
with go
I
ahead.
got all hung up on those challenges. We could go on and on. There's quite a few to think about, but with every challenge comes opportunities, and we can't lose track of the fact that this region has enormous potential to succeed. And we've been really working hard to identify what some of the opportunities are in the region. So what are the opportunities that could help us resolve some of these mobility challenges? And, one of the things we've identified as a key mobility opportunity is a new mode of transit, which would be, a passenger commuter rail that is grade separated. So high capacity transit that can help connect some of those employment and job centers with the population and get people there much faster. And then, as a lot of these are just kind of improving on those challenges that I just mentioned before. So, reducing vehicle miles traveled and preserving our existing transportation system. It's one thing to want to implement a lot of new service, but we have quite a bit of um, roads and transportation infrastructure that we really need to maintain in a system of good repair. So that's a key component. And then finally, that linking the land use with opportunities is really, really one of our most important things, land use and transportation, and developing patterns where people can access different modes of transportation so that you don't have to get into your car to go everywhere you want to go. But with that, I am going to turn it back over to Elizabeth now,
Yes.
because we want to hear from you. You told us what the challenges are. Now we're going to make it harder. We're going to ask you, what do you think the opportunities are in this study area? Where do you think we can do things better? Or is there some low-hanging fruit that we're not aware of that we can improve on out there?
And you know, Jennifer, is Corey, you can go ahead and take us over. Let's go to the Menti poll again, folks here, looking for opportunities. But you know, we have so many you know, wonderful representatives on the call today. I'd like to hear some of the opportunities. Perhaps there's some things that are in the works that we need to be aware of. You know, I know Port of San Diego is on the call. We have the Port Master Plan, the Border Master Plan. Is being updated currently. You know, are there opportunities with some of the projects there to, you know, kind of sync up and really get a comprehensive corridor plan here? So we do want to hear from, you know, what kind of things are happening in your neck of the woods that would be opportunities to build off of. You know, Jennifer, you were talking a little bit about what those of us in the industry will say first last mile, but we're talking about connections from you know, the transit way, you know, to our home or to our place of business. And you know, oftentimes we'll find people making a decision to get in a car and drive from their home to their place of work, rather than try to get over to the transit station, take transit, and then connect from the transit station at the other end to their work or school and things like that. So I think some of the micro mobility, which are the scooters and the bikes, right, that we see out on the streets, are opportunities for first last mile. And I see some folks are echoing my comments here. But I'm just offering some words so that we're really storming our brains here to look at opportunities. And some really good things here. Youth opportunities, youth passes, looking at transit passes, I think. Somebody said, make public transportation cool. And I love that. There's certainly some models around the nation that we can look at for ways to make transit cool. Purple line, similar to the BART coming up, bicycle storage facilities, great staffing at transit centers. Yeah, what do you see in there, Jennifer?
Yeah, the bike storage is one that leapt out at me as well when we were talking about that. Lots of purple line, that's a good one.
Well, this is an opportunity here, kind of reverse engineering, but spread the jobs to other areas. And I know we have some folks, you know, representing the jobs folks here, but yeah, spread the jobs around.
Electrify the bus fleet, that's in the works. That'll help us out quite a bit.
Plus, that sounds like a good rap song, electrify the bus fleet. Internet connections, great opportunity. Certainly a lot more we can do with internet accessibility. Looking at a multimodal system at San Ysidro, I saw someone talking about rail or trolley over beyond not just the 5 and the coast. Intelligent transportation, certainly great opportunities now.
Does anybody have any thoughts for opportunities related to goods movement and the fact that we have so much of that happening now? Or what about the border? Do you see any opportunities for transportation at the border that you'd like to make us aware of?
Yeah, transit hubs near housing, I see, so people can get to jobs. Yeah. Again, improving the bike network. Somebody says get people to bike more and make local communities better. And we know here at, you know, at SANDAG that, you know, making that bikeway safe is the number one impediment as to why people don't choose to ride bikes, because we don't have that safe, protected, you know, class 1 or 2 bike lanes that Jennifer was talking about earlier. Yeah. Light rail, you know, these are just wonderful. And so let's just maybe spend another 15, 20 seconds here on the poll and get your last comments. And even though these are flying on our screen here, flowing on our screen.
Oh, specify freight only lanes at certain times. That's a good one.
Yeah, freight only lanes. I know, Jennifer, we're working on a project that's doing some bus only lanes, testing out some software and ramp interfaces. So some transit only or bus only lanes, freight only lanes.
More trees. I like that one. We have to think about the urban.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm from a long line of tree huggers. I'm a big part of that. This is great, folks. Again, thank you so much. We're going to wrap this up. Access to restrooms, so important, right? Otay Mesa Transit Hub, we know that there's a transit center. That is a great opportunity coming in there. And Jennifer, I see joining us on camera here is the consultant team project manager, Loriana. And Loriana, you want to talk to the stakeholders here on the call a little bit about what we'll be doing and how we'll be measuring some of the choices we'll make.
Yeah, and before Loriana jumps in here, I do want to let everybody know I didn't do detailed introductions because they take so long with a very big group like this. But Loriana is our project manager. We have HNTB as our consultant team on this project, and they bring enormous amount of experience, and we're the consulting team that worked on our regional vision as well. And Loriana was intimately involved in that. So we are so pleased to have her, and she's going to go over our performance measures and walk through how, once we start developing all of these solutions, how are we going to prioritize those that are the most important, those that we want to go after funding for, because there's a limited pot of funding. There's 5 CMCPs and there's going to be a lot of projects. So we really have to make sure we're competitive. And we have some thoughts on how to do that. And Lorianne is going to share those with you. So.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Yeah, so happy to be here. This has been great. Thank you everyone for your feedback. We really do appreciate it. And please know that we will look at all of these opportunities carefully. It's great that we have more information rather than less. And so I'm going to walk you through the process that we are going to use as the consultant team to try to understand how do we evaluate and prioritize and synthesize all this information to make it the South Bay to Sorrento CMCP transportation solution set. So to get it started, I think this graphic helps illustrate the way that we go about this. So we start off with guidelines, guiding principles from state and federal transportation agencies, and the programs that Jennifer talked to you about earlier from the CTC guidelines and SCCP Solutions for Congested Corridor Program funding. And so we start with those elements, and the project team started with those elements as well. Developing goals and objectives, this is part of the role of the project team, the overall project team, and identifying issues and opportunities that you're helping us today with those issues and with those challenges and opportunities by sharing your thoughts on the process. And the project team has also developed some as you so. So all those things, all that information that gets gathered turns into what we like to call a universe of corridor strategies. And we start to identify a large number of projects, programs, policies that could help here in the South Bay to Sorrento corridor. And then the step that we start to take is to screen those. Is there, first of all, fatal flaw screening, make sure that all of them are feasible and can be integrated. And then we start to use data-driven analysis, look more at the feasibility, the cost, how are we going to implement it, can we fund these opportunities? And that becomes the refinement process, level 2. And you start to think about our large amount of potential solutions that we have. We start passing them through this evaluation framework funnel through different evaluation performance measures and indicators, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And I have a little example for you so that it becomes a little clearer. And then we start to narrow it down to what are full sets of alternatives and transportation solutions that are feasible for this corridor. We call that the familiar solutions, and through some even more rigorous analysis, through performance measures, data-driven analysis, that becomes, we get a lot of information about the greenhouse gas emissions, the VMT, what choices people are making through modeling work. And so that ends up being a recommended solution. And so we have the South Bay to Sorrento recommended solution for the CMCP program. So as you can see, it's a big process from taking all this information for so many different sources and screening it down through a series of performance measures and screening criteria and evaluation. So for next slide, please. So this is a little bit of the example that I wanted to talk to you about.
Hey, Loriana, it's Elizabeth. Just to interject real quick, can we just go back a slide, Corey, and just, Loriana, can you clarify two things? One, the input from the stakeholders and where that serves in the funnel, and two, one of our participants, can we just shine a little bit of a light on what would make something a fatal flaw, or what defines a fatal flaw?
Right, correct. So fatal flaw, that's a good question. So it depends at what level we are on the analysis. The one that comes to mind, for example, if we want to underground the purple line and it's just not engineering feasibility that we can do that, and we have to have a different choice. Sometimes there's right-of-way barriers. There's environmental barriers or technical barriers as well. So there's a number of things that we could maybe very quickly discard and say this solution is not feasible. Maybe even cost barriers, and we say this would be outrageous, way out of the realm of possibility. And so that type of things are the things that we screen at the very beginning, so very quickly. And now I'm going to talk to you about also a little bit. I think the next slide, Elizabeth, is going to help me illustrate how we're going to use the information from the that we gathered today. This is an overview of the whole process. But I'm going to call out some of the input you've given us and how we're going to use it. So I think if we go to the next slide, and feel free to interrupt me and we'll go back if it's not clear. So what I wanted to show you, there are policy consideration areas, general themes that have been set for all CMCP analysis. And these are themes you're familiar with. They talk about reducing greenhouse gas emissions, reducing air quality, social equity, improving mobility in all ways. And so those policy consideration areas were taken by the project development team, the project team, and turned into South Bay to Sorrento project goals. And you've actually today helped us rank those goals. In the first ranking that we did, and we've collected that information, these are the high-level corridor priorities that are related to each of the policy consideration areas. And so your input today, and you'll get more opportunities to do so, so don't think that was the only chance. We have a survey that will be released to the public here today through our social pinpoint site, so you'll get more opportunities to do this, and we hope to gather even more input from you. But that's going to help us prioritize goals. Today, for example, the job housing balance, the efficient land use, that was the #1 priority. And so in some ways, if there are conflicts between goals, in some cases, we're going to prioritize elements that will help that job housing balance. That doesn't mean we don't look at everything else. That doesn't mean that all the other elements are not important. But in some situations, that's how it's going to help us to avoid conflicts. Now, the next step of it is what we call the South Bay to Sorrento objectives. These are much more specific. They're measurable, and they indicate progress towards a certain goal. So usually it's stated as improve, reduce, etc. And in a little bit, you're going to help us rank objectives as well, now that you know where this is going. And so these objectives have been defined by the project team, but we're going to take your input as well on what is most important to measure to move towards measuring these goals. And so you're going to see these in a little bit with another Menti poll, and it can also be done through the survey. Now, once we have that information and we've created a prioritized list, and that becomes our performance-based evaluation framework. And then there's going to be specific methodologies developed for each objective. So these are performance measures. They're data-driven indicators that are tied to each objective. And these are developed by the technical staff, and many of them are standardized measures across all CMCPs. So we're going to gather this data, and with your help, we're going to be able to prioritize what are the elements that become most important to address, and that helps us develop a prioritized list of transportation solutions. And I'm going to go through an example about doing just that in a minute, but I should stop and make sure that there are no questions. I'm looking over at the chat here, but just in case there's some fatal flaws. But Elizabeth, you feel free to interrupt me if there's some questions about what I'm going through here.
Yeah, I think we're doing okay. There's a couple comments around fatal flaw, and you know, folks were chiming in, and one comment was that something that causes a public health concern, that should be a fatal flaw. Also, they were thinking that some of what we were calling flaws seem like barriers. Let's drill down on that, and maybe as we take Q&A at the end of the call here in just a few moments, talk a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. And I should say that it's not a rigorous screening that happens originally. It's we call it fatal flaw because it's really like it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. And when we come back to you, this is the stage that will bring all these solutions to you. And the most important thing is not necessarily to screen them out, but to rank and prioritize them and understand how these work together to conform a full functioning multimodal transportation network. And so that initial screening is actually very, very light. Not a lot gets screened out in the first set of universe of strategies, but I do appreciate that. We want to make sure that we don't take something that could be a creative solution and take it off the table early. I agree with that as well. And so let me walk you through an example. Next slide, Corey, please, of what I was talking about here. So for example, one of the policy considerations area is economic development and goods movement. And then we have the goal, which is support economic opportunity. And these are some of the goals related to what you ranked today. And then the objectives, you can talk about improving access to economic opportunity or improving freight efficiency. Those are different types of economic opportunities. And so when we talk about improving access to economic opportunity, it's going to be measured. The way it gets measured is the percentage of residents who can access a tier 1 or 2 employment center, which Jennifer talked to you about, the most important employment centers within our corridor, or higher education within 30 and 45 minutes. And so how does this analysis work for our corridor? We're going to be looking at all the residents that live in the corridor and the percentage of residents that could access any tier 1 or 2 employment centers. And also we're going to be looking at the people that work in our corridor, and we're going to see of the people that work in the corridor, how many of them live within 30 to 45 minutes. So it's a we can do double-sided analysis to make sure we're understanding priorities for residents and priorities for people who work in the corridor. And then there are more specific measures such as freight efficiency. Maybe the average time in congestion is a good measure for freight. And so that's how we start to measure how each of these alternatives and solutions can actually improve on the challenges, the problems that we're seeing, the objectives. And so that's what we call the performance-based evaluation framework. And so now what we're going to ask you to do is to do a little bit more ranking, more detailed ranking of the objectives. And Elizabeth, feel free to jump in here and help me out.
Sure, Lorianne. What I was going to add here, folks, is that there are 12 objectives on the screen, and I want you just to take a breath and take a moment, because we do want you to rank each of these. We're doing fine on time here, and we're going to get to, I see some questions coming in, but we're asking you to rank the top 3 so that we can see how these are sorting out. And I know you're on your phone and there's a scroll bar to look through, but take a moment and read through all 12, and I'm going to do the same here, and then vote for your top 3. So one of the objectives is the lower likelihood of accidents and fatalities, one item that we would want to measure. Lower likelihood of transit accidents and crime. Another objective that we're asking you to rank is more safety considerations for non-vehicular users, for bike and ped folks. More people choosing to walk, bike, use transit, and share rides. Shorter travel times and commutes. Regional centers connected via multiple travel choices. I like that one as my vote. All communities, including low income and other disadvantaged communities, have access to high quality transportation options. Employment and higher education centers that can be assessed accessed faster from any point in the region. Yeah, some faster connections, right? We need to really inspire people to give up their car and use transit and make those quick connections that are so important to us. Shorter travel time on the goods movement corridor, super important with our maquiladoras in Mexico, and such important ports of entry, land ports of entry here along the border. I see folks are answering, and I'm just sort of reading through these high quality transit options. Transit is located where people live or work. Transportation is cleaner, lower greenhouse gases that affect climate change, air quality improving.
Ooh, we had one jump here.
Wait,
it's fun
somebody,
to watch, isn't it?
I know.
Yeah. And I wanted to also add that we're a little limited by the way that we are doing these rankings. So when the public survey comes out, we're not gonna ask you to rank, rather we just want to see the importance of each: high, medium, low. And so it gives you more flexibility of how you do respond. And so this is a first pass, so you can get familiar with the way we're soliciting input here from you and from the public. But the survey will give you, you won't actually have to think of first, second, third, but you can think of them independently, because they really are independent measures. That we're not trying to ask you which one is more important than the other one, which is what you're doing right now, but you really have to think of them of how important they are to the South Bay to Sorrento corridor independently. Is it a high importance, medium importance, low importance? And it'll help us make decisions, the technical team make decisions based on the input we receive.
So Loriana, some of the ones that are coming up, our top 3 right now are, looks like there's some jockeying for position here. It's kind of like you're at a horse race. All communities, including low income and other disadvantaged communities, have that access to the high quality transportation options, is kind of holding up in first place here. We also have the shorter travel time, shorter commutes, more people choosing to walk, bike, use transit or share rides. High quality transit, again, kind of elevated up here. So this information is really going to help inform the team, and kind of from your gut here, was a wonderful for you to weigh in and help inform the team some of these objectives.
Yeah, thank you everyone for your input. We really value your participation here.
So let's, Corey, let's go to the next slide. And Jennifer, I want to have you talk through the schedule a little bit. I'm going to chat with everybody about what we're asking of you. And then we'll have a question and answer session. And we're going to take a look at our virtual engagement hub, which some of us were using kind of an internal term. It's social pinpoint. That's kind of like saying WordPress, I think. But we really want to make sure that everybody on the call is aware of our virtual engagement hub and knows how to engage with the project team as we move through this schedule that Jennifer's going to chat about.
Great. Thanks, Elizabeth. And thanks, Loriana. That was a good summary. I tell you, performance measures, I've been doing this for 25 years, and it's always one of the hardest pieces of a study. So we do appreciate your input, and it's always helpful for us. So what we have here is a high-level schedule of your engagement. So if you look at this, we've brought on the consultant. We've been working hard as a team to get all of that data together and really understand the existing conditions of the study area. And that's where we are at this stage as a team. We haven't developed any of those solutions yet. We are right there at the beginning with you in terms of understanding the corridor, breaking it into sub areas, starting to reach out and get your input. And that's where we are today at stakeholder meeting number 1. And I actually am pretty darn happy with how this meeting is going, because we've gotten your input on the goals at the beginning. You probably didn't even know that. And now we've gotten your opinions on the objectives, which are so critical. And so what we're going to be doing is that later, and it's going to be in the spring. It's probably not going to be this winter. We're almost, past, we're almost into the new year, is we're going to be bringing you back some of our packages, some of those transportation solutions. And you'll be seeing those in probably the spring. I'm gonna hedge on February or March, if you will. And then based on that, once we get your opinion on those, we'll be coming back to you again 4 times overall. So the third meeting will be the performance measures and the refinement of those packages. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all of the input that we gained in those first 2 meetings, and then we're going to start refining the packages and think back to that funnel that Loriana showed you. So, we're going to have the universe of options. Or all of the solutions, and then we're going to start applying those performance measures, and we're going to start narrowing the funnel, and then we'll bring those back to you to show what's rising to the top and get your input on that. And then in the summer or fall, we'll be coming back to you with the draft to see, to gather your final input on, okay, these are all the measures, these are all the projects, these are all the programs that we thought came to the top and that we shared with you in the spring. And this is what it looks like. This looks like the top priorities for the region. So interspersed throughout all of this, all of these meetings with you will be a public outreach campaign to the public at large. And our first component of that is that virtual outreach that Elizabeth talked about and the survey. So I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth because she's got some homework for you and a way for you to help us engage with the public.
Thanks, Jennifer. That's right. So each of you on the call, we're asked to join us today as part of this stakeholder advisory group. As you were logging on when we started the call today, I was sharing with you the different types of representatives that we have. It's important to us as the project team that we really reach out beyond each of you on the call. And so we're asking you to not only engage with us in our virtual engagement hub, which is referred to on the screen here as the social pinpoint site, but this is going to be kind of the one-stop shop for everything South Bay to Sorrento. So as we're moving across that project schedule that Jennifer was just talking about, we're going to be continuing to ask you to go to this virtual engagement hub and engage with us. I think we'll have time here in just a moment. We'll take a quick tour of this virtual engagement site so that you can see the types of information on there. But the key thing that we're looking for now, as we're rolling into the winter, Jennifer was talking about, we're going through the holidays here. We need to take a broader look from more people at some of the answers that you provided today via survey. So on the screen, you can see access to our English virtual engagement hub. We do have a Spanish virtual engagement hub, which should be up in the next 24 hours or so. But very soon we'll have our Spanish virtual engagement hub up and happening. I do see some questions coming in about social equity, and I really appreciate you wearing that hat, Barry. But we do have ways to engage with the public. Social engagement is super important to us, beyond those that have computers, with some pop-up events, doing some interaction, live interaction, so long as we can get through the pandemic. And be back, and I'm hoping by the spring, I think we're all hoping by the spring, that things will be in better shape and we'll be back out engaging with the public. So what I need you to do is kind of, help us with this effort. I know we have folks from community planning groups on the call. Thank you so much for playing such an important role in your community and being involved. We want to broadcast this message to community planning groups. SANDAG folks, a lot of you on the call, want to make sure that our working groups are getting this information as well. Very soon, after this call, I need you to watch your email, please, and we'll send you an email with the link so that you can simply forward it on to your membership. The key thing that we like to ask them to do via this virtual engagement hub is to complete the public survey. So you need to complete the public survey and spread the word to ask others to complete the public survey as well. So in just either tomorrow, or early Monday, watch your email. And then can we go to the next slide, Corey? I want to make sure that you also know how to reach us. Now, the social pinpoint site you can see on your screen. I think it's also dropped in the chat. It is in the chat box. Yes, it is. It says Virtual Engagement Hub, and there's an HTTPS URL to follow. So you have the ability to talk with us via the Virtual Engagement Hub by interacting with a map. You can go to the map and drop a pin and tell us what we need to know about a specific location on the map. You can fill out a comment form. You can fill out the survey. But we also have an email and a hotline on the call here on the screen, I meant to say. So cmcp@sandag.org to reach out to Jennifer or anyone on the project team with your questions. Also added to the chat, and then a project hotlines on the screen as well. I asked Corey to advance this screen so that you could see the social pinpoint, the virtual meeting, engagement hub website, and the email. And Jennifer mentioned, but please also keep in mind that once we get through the holidays, we're going to be having a public engagement workshop. It's going to be very much like this workshop that we had today, but looking to reach a broader members of the public beyond those that we were able to reach today. So we'll be asking you to promote the Virtual Engagement Hub in English and Spanish. We'll be asking you to participate in the survey and ask others that you know to participate in the survey, and then also promote our public engagement sessions we'll be hosting. Corey, I think this is the last slide. And I think, Jennifer, with that, we can do two things. I can take some of the questions we had earlier. Those of you that are on the call and want to stay for a few more minutes, it's my clock says 3:20. And so we've booked time for a little while longer. If you want to engage with us verbally, we'd love to do that now. So raise your hand. There's a little raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen, of the Zoom screen that you're looking at, or go to the chat box and chat the question. And then we can open microphones if you wish to engage with us in that way. So if you want to drop off, feel free to watch your email. Follow us to the Virtual Engagement Hub, and be sure to spread the word. But let's take some questions for those of us that can stay on the call. I know that earlier we had a question about the fatal flaw, but we also had a question about an east-west route for CMCP, Jennifer, across Mid-City. Do you know how that falls into the other CMCPs that aren't unfolding just yet?
Yes, that's such a great question. I appreciate whoever asked that. So, at the beginning of this presentation, I talked about the fact that SANDAG had funded 12 of these CMCPs. We are only on the cusp of 5 of these. We're at the beginning of 5. There will be a CMCP that is done for the I-8 corridor. So when you think about the corridor, just don't think about the freeway, just like the 805 CMCP corridor, it's going to expand all the way up to City Heights and then potentially, as far as, beyond Friars Road. So it'll be a full corridor analysis, an east-west corridor analysis. We have the 52 corridor currently underway. The 94 is also a corridor that will be evaluated, and then the 56. So I think we hit most of the east-west corridors, but most of those, aside from the 52, won't be done until the second phase of these CMCPs. So quite possibly they'll be kicked off in 2023 once we finish this first round.
Thanks for that, Jennifer. I also see folks asking about Spanish. The survey will be in Spanish, as will the virtual engagement hub will be coming out in Spanish as well. Laura, are there any hands raised just yet? I can't quite see the hand raised. Oh, here we are. Anyone with additional questions via raising the hand or in chat? I did want to chat a little bit more. This fatal flaw question came up, Jennifer,
Yeah.
and kind of, obstacles versus flaws. And Loriana, she spoke a little bit about kind of where we are in the phase. And I know I've seen projects be studied for a number of years, and sometimes, just the financial limitations, it just costs too much money to build things. And some people may look at that as a fatal flaw. But do you have any insights on kind of how we might look at some fatal flaws in this case?
Yeah, we do fatal flaw analysis is kind of a tool that we use on the planning side to take a first crack at what are some of the major limitations of a potential project. And some of the things, for instance, could be earthquake faults. Earthquake faults are definitely, you don't want to build in a certain way on top of a major earthquake fault. That would be a fatal flaw for that alignment, and that would potentially allow us to select an alternative, if you will. It could be that we're looking at building a project and it's in a sea level rise area. And so we may consider that a fatal flaw if we don't have the ability to design infrastructure that could withstand that. So we would look again for some alternative there. Soils can often be a fatal flaw, not because you can't engineer it around some soils, but sometimes that becomes so prohibitively expensive that it wasn't the soil that was the fatal flaw, it was the cost to remediate those soils. Grade differentials for transit can be considered a fatal flaw. And when I say a grade differential, a trolley can only go up a hill up to 4%, for instance, because they just don't have the power to do that. So if you're trying to chug up a 8% hill, and you can't engineer your way out of it, or again, the engineering becomes prohibitively expensive, that can be a fatal flaw. So there's a wide range of things. And usually all fatal flaw does is it allows us to start concentrating on an alternative. It doesn't mean that the project isn't good. It means that we need to look for an alternative to whatever that flaw is.
Thanks for expanding that conversation. I do have a couple hands raised, Laura. And I'm just calling you out. Can you open, Barry, you were chiming in about a couple of things, and Barry Pollard's on the call here. And I think Laura can open his mic. And then Barry, I think you need to also, there you go. Yeah, why don't you chat with us? You also mentioned about the 94 corridor. Thanks for joining us. What would you like to share?
First of all, thank you. The information is very, very good. It's well outlined. It's clear for people that aren't as familiar with this process. So I do appreciate that. Good education piece. You had mentioned that there were 12 CMCPs, 5 were on the first round. And this is all looking through an equity lens, through my lens, and wondering how they were selected. Yeah, and the question, of course, was, 94 runs right through a bunch of redlined areas, and if we're committed to some substantive, immediate concerns being addressed.
Mhm.
So I'm just wondering, what was the process to come up with the 5 that were selected for the first round?
So the 5 that were selected by the SANDAG board, and there was a list of criteria. And quite honestly, the projects that were selected were those projects that were highest on the previous, if you will, the previous Transnet ballot measure. So on the ballot measure, we had committed to projects along 78 corridor. We had committed to projects along the 52 corridor. The 67 is a life safety corridor that has risen to the top because there's some immediate pending life safety issues out on that corridor. And then the 805 corridor was selected because of the Purple Line being one of the top rated projects within the region, and understanding how the transportation solutions around the Purple Line would need to be developed. And then finally, the Central Mobility Hub, because the connections to the airport have really risen, the transit connections to the airport as a critical component, and the timing with the Navy has elevated it to a top priority for the region. But there is and we can put this out as in the email as well, there was a SANDAG board item that explained all of the criteria in detail and the selection process for those corridors.
Okay, good. Yes, I'd be really interested to read them. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Barry. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you around next time.
Absolutely.
Laura, let's open the mic for Randy. Randy Torres Van Vleck, if you can chime in, and then we'll go to Mario. And I think Randy, unmute yourself as well. Let's see if we can get you to there you go. I think you're good, Randy. I think we can hear you. Go ahead and say something, Randy. Maybe we can't hear you. I saw your mic come off. I know you said you were on the phone earlier. I keep feeling like I'm hearing you, but maybe not. Yeah.
Randy says he doesn't have a question, actually.
Okay, never mind. No worries. Always good to chat with you. Let's go ahead and Mario, do you still have a question for us?
Mostly I have a whole bunch of comments, but I'll just give you 1 or 2.
Okay.
One is I like what you're doing. It's very good, getting a lot of people involved. You got all the making these choices, having people pick what they want. My concern is the biggest problem we have is money. And all these nice pie in the sky choices of what people want are what we can't afford. So somehow or another, you need to massage these questions and information to tell people, well, this is what you really want, but we can't afford that one, but maybe we can afford something else. I don't know how you're going to do that. But that's just some of those things about getting, improving the speed. That's something that seems very popular. We need to do that. But I mean, I think you can do some of that with some of the current transit we have. Got to be able to speed some of these things up. I know the trolleys run somewhat at as fast as they can go, but a lot of times they really slow down because of safety and other concerns. And the buses have other obstacles. But there's got to be some ways of speeding these things up, especially the perception of speed. Going through downtown San Diego, when they trolley was put in, I don't know if anybody else was here when the first trolley went through downtown. But when that trolley went through downtown, it didn't stop except at the trolley station. And it didn't bother the other cars. They still got through downtown too. But in the it's getting better. Actually, I went downtown the other day and the streets are a little bit more better for cars now for as far as getting through. I'm not sure how that happened, but some of those lights are timed better. But the trolley stops 3 or 4 times in between stations. And that's just, and those are the little things that SANDAG and MTS, I've been saying this for a while, but no one seems to listen. But you guys do not understand the perception of the people out here in the neighborhood. They don't think you know what you're doing. And these little things that help improve people's perception of the speed, and don't stop here and don't do this, and would really improve your reputation and help you get more ballot votes. Two things you could do that would be very inexpensive. Well, I don't know I think they should be very inexpensive.
Yeah.
One is, you're talking about all this north-south stuff. You got a BRT that runs pretty fast from the border through Chula Vista, and once you get on 805, you can go nowhere but downtown. Now, every other line should go up to at least up to 815 and El Cajon Boulevard, so people can change. The people in Mid-City want to come south and north, not just north. And the people down south want to go to all of those places. But you guys are ignoring these little simple things you could do. The other one is downtown. I talked to city people, moving the trolley through downtown. You talk to the city traffic signal people. Oh, well, that's a trolley issue. That's a SANDAG issue. You talk to SANDAG people. Oh, that's a city of traffic signal issue. No one wants to tackle it. But if you guys want to get some good kudu points in this town, fix some of these little things that don't cost a lot of money, a lot of construction money, and people will take notice of that.
Mhm.
And one real quick one is, I'm sure you guys are talking about it with SDSU, but there is absolutely no press about it. And I look at their drawings and their pretty things and what they want to build down there by the stadium, but they need to leave a corridor for not east, north, south line in there. That purple line or a BRT, whatever you're going to put through there, they need a corridor now, not after they built it out, and then you want to put a trolley through there or a high-speed rail.
Mhm.
Put us where you want to put the station and a corridor to get through there, because if you don't put a trolley station, north-south trolley station or BRT station in right next to or close to the east-west blue line or green line, you're missing a big boat, big time, because that's how this thing was sold, as it needs a north-south line.
Mhm.
But no one talks about it. I'll be quiet.
Well, we really appreciate you chiming in there. And, you're obviously a very engaged member of the community. And so, it's important for us to hear from you. So thank you, Mario. You kind of had a lot of nuggets that you dropped there. And so we appreciate your comments. I saw you making some comments as well that the team made note of. But, Jennifer, I think we've covered, are there any open questions, Laura, that I've really overlooked?
There are currently a few questions on there if you want to take a look at the list.
Yeah, I kind of saw a few comments that I think we can handle. We got the project prioritization. We do want to communicate a little bit more. What Barry was talking about was the social equity, making sure that our outreach is inclusive of folks beyond computers. I see that as a question here. But I think that we are okay on questions. I think some of those were comments.
Just one more thing, Elizabeth.
Yes.
Just one I called the attention. Someone asking if there's going to be specific meetings on certain parts of the corridor, and if so, when those will be received, the dates and time. So just to share a little bit about how we're planning our public engagement and future engagement to dive deeper into certain areas.
Yes, we will dive deeper into those, the sub areas, as Jennifer was, sharing with us earlier. There's 7 within our region. So we may have some sessions that are kind of north, central, and south, divided that way once we start looking at some of the details of the project. But we will divide some of the analysis, and some of the data will support those sub areas and do some engagement specifically around those.
Yeah. Probably
Um,
spring is what
oh.
my thoughts are. Yeah.
Yes, and Randy, do you have your hand up now? Yes, I think he does. Will you reopen Randy's mic? We gave him an opportunity to come up with a question, which is fine. Oh, I see. Oh, there you are, Randy. Let's open Randy's mic again, please, Laura. I think you're good to go, Randy. Let's try again.
Is it me?
There you are.
This is Maria.
Oh. Maria, I don't know why you're named as Randy. And you're like, "Oh, wait, why am I here? Oh, did you sign in through a login from Randy? But you're with the CDC, the City Heights, right?
Yes, but yes, I'm on my cell phone.
Okay, all right. So do you have a question, or was it Randy that had a question maybe?
I know I do.
Okay, good. Let's go, Maria. Maria,
Actually,
City Heights, CDC.
yes. Okay. And that was not my AKA. Okay, Randy. Um, I do agree with what the previous caller had said. I took the trolley downtown when it first opened up. I agree with pretty much everything that he's said. Um, I too have been an advocate and have been working with the Purple Line for 43 years now. And I would like to know, why is it also going through North Park? That wasn't in the original plans back in the day.
Mm.
It still was supposed to go through City Heights, south and north, to meet all the, pretty much the mobility hubs that have been involved in this. Um, I'm still an advocate for it to go through City Heights, going into the South Bay and into the North County. Yes, because that is where people work. I take the trolley quite a bit. And when I'm on that trolley and even the buses, I hear people say that they wish that we had a line that would connect from the South Bay in through City Heights to go into North County, because that's where they're on their way to go to work. Instead, they have to take the trolley only halfway and then end up taking several buses just to get to where they have to go to work in the North County. A lot of them work up in the Mira Mesa area. I hear
Mhm.
people talking about they work, in Sorrento Valley and places like that.
Yeah.
But also, we need to get to those places also, not just for work, but, to go to school activities. I hear a lot of kids talking the same thing. They wish they had a connection that would take them into the North County, because they have to go to jobs and they have to go to school. And so, that's one of my pet peeves. I am glad that finally I am seeing the Purple Line getting the notability that it needs, and being put back on the drawing board. I'm hoping that it's not going to take another 40 years or 30 years. I keep being told that, and it's not going to take that long. No project should have to take that long. I'm sorry. This is why the SR-15 was built. So that way, we were supposed to have both the bus and the trolley coming through the center line. And so I hope I'm alive to see the Purple Line come through. But if
Mhm.
not, my granddaughters will be pushing me through my ashes. So
Well, thank you so much for your activism on that. It is frustrating when it takes so long. I mean, I worked on a bike project in Ohio that took 35 years to, put in. And so it's not just our San Diego region, but Jennifer, do you want to talk a little bit about some of her questions about, I don't know if the route, how set the Purple Line route is, or you want to chat a little bit about that?
Yeah, and you know what, Maria, I think that I showed you those two alternatives at the Transportation Equity Working Group the other night.
right.
And the reason that we're identifying both of those potential alignments is that, when the Purple Line was promised to City Heights to go along the I-15 corridor, North Park and University Heights were just sleepy little areas, and they hadn't really grown much at that point. But now, when we did the vision, part of what we did was we did a deep dive on the data, and the data is surrounding densities and where people live and where people work and where the activity centers are going. And quite honestly, City Heights absolutely pops as a very important and key area for transportation. But North Park and University Heights pops just as bright. And so we have to do our due diligence and look at both of these corridors and really look to see what gets the best ridership and what provides the best connections. And so we are going to be looking at both of those alignments in parallel as part of this study to determine, what provides the best connectivity and benefits the most people.
Right. And we will still be on there, but I just want to say I thank you guys for doing what you're doing to, with us.
Thanks so much for being here as always. And I would love to celebrate with you in our lifetime with the purple
Me
line there.
too. Yeah.
You got that
Elizabeth, if
right.
I can answer Mario's question real quickly about SDSU and
Yeah.
just reassure him that everybody's talking about SDSU and how we serve that area. And in fact, SANDAG got awarded a Caltrans planning grant to do a deep dive on how we're going to incorporate a major transit facility at SDSU West. And so what I was just talking to Maria about, the purple line, there is the one alternative that comes through City Heights would also go to that new SDSU development. So we are working very, very closely with SDSU and the city to ensure that transit is incorporated in a very meaningful way. This study is looking at it. The Mission Valley study will look at it. The I-8 study will look at it. The city of San Diego is looking at it in parallel with us. So I can assure you that, it's on everybody's radar, and we are going to be working very, very hard. And quite honestly, SDSU West has to have a significant amount of transit because they are building a facility that doesn't have the parking spaces, and that's a good thing to support everything that they're doing there. So anybody who's going to be living or working there is really going to have to use alternatives to a car in order to access that site or to live on that site. So just rest assured, we're on it.
We're on it. Well, good. And thank you. And Mario is extending his gratitude. Jennifer, I think with this, there's a few minutes left on our clock. And thanks everyone for being so engaged and staying with us. I do want to go over to our virtual engagement hub. Jeremy, can we, Corey, to Jeremy, can we share screens or shift screens so that Jeremy can take us through the virtual engagement hub? Maria, Randy from City Heights CDC, county folks are on the call. We really are excited, how excited you are. And we're asking for an action item from you, and that is to share this virtual engagement hub, especially because of the pandemic and we're not out, doing in-person open houses as much. We would like for folks to engage. So Jeremy has on the screen here, he's followed the link that we posted, and we're going to share with you via email. It's also in the chat box if you're looking for it. But Jeremy, is your mic on? You want to talk a little bit through this, our virtual engagement hub here?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'll just go through this briefly. This is a very simple site to navigate for all the users. And as was mentioned earlier, there will also be a mirror of this site in Spanish in the coming days. So you've got some regular links, navigation links up here in your upper right-hand corner. The first one will actually take you to the SANDAG website. And then the second one will take you to an overview of the SANDAG website. The first link was actually for the project page itself for the South Bay to Sorrento project. Excuse me. The next clickable link you have here will take you out to Caltrans. If you have something that you want to look up on their site, we wanted to make sure that that was populated as well. As you scroll down, you will see the map that we shared with you during the presentation, some text regarding the actual project itself and the project timeline. As we move a little bit further down, this is the survey that Elizabeth was mentioning throughout the presentation. Real simple. All you have to do is click the project survey link. It will open up this new window. It is a rather long survey, but it doesn't take you long to complete. So it shouldn't take you any more than 5 minutes to do the homework, as we were calling it, on the survey itself. The next piece that's also very important is the project map. So this will allow not only you, but your constituents, your organizations to actually take these pins, and we'll just start here with this environmental comment. You can take this environmental comment pin and you can place this, drag it and place it anywhere within the purple boundary lines that are featured on the map. It's going to allow you then to place in your comment, your first and last name if you so desire. The postal code is a required field that we need from a data analytics standpoint. And then of course your comments are required field as well. Anyone that tries to place a pin outside of the purple area will receive a message that they just need to go back to the general comment form to submit that comment. And I'll share that with you here in just a moment. So each one of these pins, you just take it, drag it into its spot, and then allows you to make the comment itself. Going back to the page itself, so you have the comment form. Again, this is going to pop up, just give you an opportunity to give your zip code. Again, this is required, and then the comments itself. And then you just click submit and you're done. Then below that, we actually have a project fact sheet that we will encourage you to download. Share this with your organizations. Easy enough. If you don't know how to download it, it's over here in the upper right-hand corner. You'll just click download, and then that'll give you an option of where to place that on your desktop. As we go, well, maybe. Well, it didn't like me doing that, did it? Hang on, let's see what we can do here. There we go. We have the contact us box in the bottom. So you have the phone number for the project and you have the email address as well. And then finally, we have the social media channels. So you can go to the Facebook channels, the Instagram channels, the YouTube channels, and the Twitter channels, submit comments, submit your thoughts on the overall program. And that will about do it for me on what the Virtual Engagement Hub does.
Jeremy, thanks for walking us through that. We really appreciate it. And so I'm just reminding folks to watch your email or follow the link, take the survey and share the information with folks. Jennifer, we did have a couple questions come over here, but I think, do you want to go ahead and wrap up for now? And I did see, okay, good. Some questions were being answered. The survey will be available in Spanish. The survey can be completed via phone. So great. Also, I saw Alejandra, you were asking about a trucking company representatives and the goods movement. Very important to us. So we'll have some long and short haul folks involved as well. I think I covered all of the last minute questions.
Yeah, I think so too, Elizabeth. You did a great job making sure that they were all addressed. And if anybody would like, you can continue to reach out to us on that CMCP website or the email and ask us any additional questions. It comes directly, it goes into a repository, but it comes to us, the project team. So it's just a way that we can store and keep track of all the information, but it definitely comes directly to us. And we will promise a response to you. So certainly reach out there, but I do want to be sensitive to people's time. And I think we have accomplished so much here, and I really do appreciate what everybody has brought to the table here today. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for attending. Watch your email. Stay safe, stay well.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks Jennifer. Take care everyone, bye-bye.
Bye.